I don't think you're going to see a Cowboys last dance. No way.
You'd have to get Jerry and Jimmy to both sit down for that.
You'd also have to get the players talking about what's going on off the field. I don't know how many people are going to be so, because again, when you say last dance, when I mentioned this to Wilbon, or you mentioned it, you read the poll question, he was like, I'll interested in the Patriots, but Belichick and Brady have to tell their stories. And that's what the last dance is. You got to tell your stories. Everybody's telling their stories with F-bombs, S-bombs, all sorts of words being used. It's raw, and I think that's why people enjoy it. And it's got to be years from now, Belichick sits down and Brady sits down and everybody else sits down and tells their stories.
What happened with Garoppolo?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
That's why, again, that is what we need to hear. And it's not just that, too.
That's just one. I mean,
okay, because the Kobe Shaq, I know that, Wilbon's pointing out that Kobe's no longer with us, which, again, I still can't believe. There's got to be enough sound of Kobe talking about Shaq in different places that you could weave something together. I just don't know how many Cowboys are going to be so open. Maybe one day, Brady, in the same way that Jordan wants his story told. And maybe one day, Belichick, who nobody saw coming as an analyst, Emmy-nominated analyst saw coming, maybe he wants his story told. And NFL Film sits down everybody, because that's who clearly everybody trusts, and they tell their story. And the whole thing. Today's the 5-year anniversary of Deflategate, the Ted Wells report being dropped. We were in New York. Remember that?
I do.
We were in New York City.
Crazy.
We were nominated for an Emmy.
Yep.
I forget which one.
You were nominated for
lost
studio
to Costas,
host.
I'm sure, whatever. And so
Ernie Johnson won that year.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the year that he gave
He gave it to Stu's.
He gave his Emmy to Stu's daughters who were there.
Correct.
That was amazing.
That was awesome.
Oh, and so we were there, and Hank Azaria, the Jet/Met fan, he was scheduled to come in, and
that's right.
And we're like, okay, we'll still have a celebrity interview in the middle of the biggest sports story of the year to drop. Because it was, how many pages was it?
243 pages.
And by the way, I saw on Brady's Twitter handle today, it's his dad's 76th birthday. So when his dad turned 71, that was when all of that dropped.
It was like $7 million.
I say happy birthday to Brady Sr., who's a great human on the planet.
Indeed.
And the Belichick that we saw on set at NFL Films for the NFL 100 All-Time Team Show series showed up behind a podium because he had enough of all the crap that was going on with Deflategate. If you remember, they beat the Colts like a drum in the AFC Championship game, despite the football that started it all being intercepted by a Colt. Okay, so if it was illegally deflated, Brady still didn't throw it accurately on a day where he didn't make any mistakes. So crazy that the football that started it was an intercepted football. And the concept is that the balls were so deflated, so Brady didn't have to throw any interceptions, or they were tougher to fumble. Remember that whole thing too?
Oh, yeah.
So Belichick showed up at a press conference a few days later when this whole thing blew up, and Belichick wanted to put it to bed before the Super Bowl against Seattle in Arizona, our first Super Bowl that we were covering. And Belichick, this is an all-time great Belichick.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert in footballs. I'm not an expert in football measurements. I'm just telling you what I know. Would not say that I'm Mona Lisa Vito of the football world, as she was in the car expertise area.
I mean, when Belichick dropped a My Cousin Vinny reference with full sarcasm and tongue-in-cheek, and people are like, where's that coming from? That's the Belichick that everybody says and that I saw in person that exists. And unbelievably, that sent us in a total wild frenzy to get on our first Super Bowl show in Arizona 2 days later. And it turned out to be the first Super Bowl guest in the history of our show, which has now been to 6 Super Bowls. The first ever Super Bowl guest was, in fact, Marissa Tomei, who played Mona Lisa Vito. Oh. And telling the story about how her phone, her world blew up. And she really didn't know much about Deflategate, God bless her.
No.
And remember that she said that the only time she could do was the first second we were on the air at our Super Bowl. So
right o'clock,
we
9
said,
Pacific.
hello, we're the Rich Eisen show at a Super Bowl. We're in this beautiful setup that Chris Long, who ran
in Phoenix, it was
DirecTV at the time. It was this makeshift saloon / hotel. And we're here, and we got tons of guests. But first, here's Marissa Tomei. Oscar winner Marissa Tomei for the role of Mona Lisa Vito.
Welcome to Super Bowl week.
So that's the documentary you want to see. Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because it would start with the Parcells and Belichick in New York City.
Yep.
With the Jets and the resignation on a cocktail napkin, and he goes to New England, which was pissed because Curtis Martin was snagged by Parcells. And then he goes to New England, and then they draft 199th overall Thomas Edward Brady, and what happened in that season, and Lawyer Malloy. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on about the early parts of the years there. The videotapes.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be great.
Deflating of footballs, and an absurdly long report by a lawyer about deflating. Brady winning a championship anyway.
The broken cell phone and the
oh my God,
4-game suspension.
Garoppolo all the way to the present day. Who wouldn't want to see that over any of it?
Yeah, I'll take 10 parts on that.
I take 20.
Well, you're a Patriot hater.
But I want to
pull
see
the
it
chair
all.
up.
I want to see it all.
But just like The Last Dance, it would be, with the exception of Eli Manning and that 1 year with Nick Foles, everybody gets destroyed. Equal opportunity destroyers. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.